We're at the age, what is a full conversation? We're diving into a topic that affects nearly 1 in 3 people over the age of 65, hearing loss. And it's not just about turning up the volume. Untreated hearing loss can lead to isolation, confusion, and even cognitive decline. We're joined by a doctor of audiology to talk about early signs, treatment options, and why so many older adults resist getting help. Whether you're worried about your parent or yourself, this episode will give you practical tools and a fresh perspective. Dr. Sinks, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much.
So like we like to start off every single episode, who are you caring for?
Well, my immediate circle of caring for is I have a son who I share responsibility of raising with my husband. So that was probably who I care for the most on a daily basis. He is moving into 7th grade.
Oh, that's a fun age.
yeah. It's been a journey. He's a good kid, though. He really is. And then I do have 2 living parents, and so they are moving into older years. And while they are still very independent and very active, I know that not too far away, we're going to be supporting them more and more.
Yeah, they need more and more help, though, the longer we go on. Now, you're a doctor. Can you tell us what kind of doctor you are?
So I am a doctor of audiology.
Okay. And how'd you get into that?
Oh, well, when I was in undergraduate, I was originally on the medical school track. I come from like a family of healthcare physicians, specialists, things like that. And I was convinced I was going to go to med school, and then I kind of just saw how their lifestyles impacted everything else. How their profession impacted their everything else lifestyle. I was like, I just don't think that's for me. So as I started looking for alternatives, I also have a background in vocal performance.
Oh, cool.
And so kind of like hearing and sound and voice, started kind of putting the pieces together, and I found communication sciences. And then when I started taking my audiology classes, I was like, that's it.
Love a good fit.
Yeah.
Very cool. I have an 7th grader as well. Do you get called bruh like I do?
No, but I get a lot of one-word answers, like, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do? Stuff. What'd you learn? Things.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I think we've got a really cool episode today, and I think one that just about all of our listeners are going to resonate with, because we've all had that family member who maybe needs a hearing aid and won't admit it. Have you had one of those family members?
Absolutely. My grandmother was experiencing hearing loss for a number of years before we could convince her to have it looked at. And I think even more time before we could convince her that she actually did need to go ahead and get the hearing aid. Yeah, it was unfortunate to see during that time how she kind of withdrew socially. She struggled in conversations with family members, and it was clear to a lot of us that she needed some support. But it was difficult to convince her to take that step. So that's one thing I'm excited to talk to you about today.
So just to start us off, what are some of those early signs of hearing loss that a lot of people miss or ignore?
Yeah. I mean, I think the one that everybody probably recognizes very first, especially when you're interacting with your family, is, that TV volume's up. A lot louder than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's often kind of like one of the first signs. Or maybe you're going out to a restaurant with the family, and either they seem very confused about what's going on. They can't understand the staff. Maybe they're not even participating in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, it's something just as simple as a comment like, do you hear that ringing sound? Like, my ears are ringing. Do you hear that? Like, what is that? That can often be a sign of hearing loss that people don't really necessarily think of.
So it's so many of those things that we just don't notice, and because a lot of it's gradual too, right? It's not just like one day we wake up and we can't hear. It's slowly over time in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For most adults, when we're talking about hearing loss as a result of that natural aging process. If anybody figures out how to avoid that, let me know. But it is typically very gradual, and so it can sneak up on you.
Absolutely.
Does hearing loss tend to affect, do you see it affect things other than just hearing? Can it affect other parts of the body or social interactions?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the kind of the most common things, and you already kind of alluded to this, is that isolation. And so when hearing loss starts to develop, and it does get to a point where it starts to affect your social communication, a lot of people will start to withdraw. And then in addition to that, you can have mental health effects such as anxiety, depression even. And then, we have, not new research, but a lot of research has been published about the connection between hearing loss and risking for falls or cognitive decline. And so hearing is not just about our ears, it's about our whole body.
Yeah. So how does the link between hearing and cognitive decline work? Like, what goes on there?
So there's a lot of research going into this, right? But kind of really the heart of the matter is if you're unable to connect with your environment, then you can't make memories to associate with that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then in addition to that, you have such we call it cognitive load, right? But like the brain is using so much energy just to figure out what's happening around them that it puts an extra burden on that memory center. And so it's almost like making the brain work overtime that the synapses just don't connect.
Wow. And then what about the falls? Like how are because I'm thinking my ears and my feet don't necessarily
They're
go
kind
together.
of far apart, aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah. But it's about spatial awareness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're not spatially aware of what's happening around you, it's easier to trip. There is actually a part of our inner ear that controls our balance system. And so if that is also being affected by the hearing loss, it can really make an impact on how somebody is being able to tell up from down and left from right for some individuals. And so that increases that risk for falls.
Wow.
Never thought about that.
I didn't either. That is truly fascinating.
Which actually explains a lot of things in my world. So we've got a lot of caregivers out there listening to this, and a lot of caregivers who are working with family members like Melody's grandma who, don't want to admit what's going on sometimes. What can we tell the caregivers? How can we help them help their loved ones?
I always say it starts with a simple conversation, right? And it's a difficult conversation to have, but it can even be something as simple as bringing the awareness of the situation to your loved one. Like, let's say they're really resistant to getting a hearing test. Like, they just don't want to know. Because sometimes it's like, if I acknowledge it, then I have to acknowledge the problem. But if I don't acknowledge the problem, then it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so oftentimes one of the things I'll say to, adult children or caregivers, taking a moment to sit down with your loved one and just talking about the impact. Saying, I really noticed the other day that when we were at Johnny's graduation party, you didn't seem to be able to have as much fun as the rest of the family. Were you just not feeling well? Were you having trouble? What was going on? Sometimes it opens the door to a conversation. Sometimes we need to be a little bit sneakier about it. Say, hey, I'm going to get my hearing tested. Why don't you come with me? We'll just do both of us at the same time. Because then they don't necessarily feel like you're attacking them.
Yeah.
Like, this is your problem. It's like, no, we're going to do this for our overall health.
Yeah, doing stuff together doesn't feel like it's a target in a lot of ways. And, I think, is there a certain age that people should be getting hearing tests more often, or is there a recommendation on that?
I don't think there is an official recommendation, but it is smart to, when we get our annual physicals, you go get your annual physical there, bring it up with your primary care, first of all, because we do a lot of education with primary care doctors over the years. Historically, it's kind of been like, oh, you're getting old. That's normal, right? It's not normal. Hearing loss is not normal.
Oh, okay.
So you want to make sure that you are just being very open with your primary care providers or your specialists, saying, I think I have a problem about this. So I say, really start thinking about getting hearing tested normally like in your 30s.
Oh, wow.
So you can like establish baselines as you age. And then it's also, we can just educate people. If we catch them young, we can educate them about how to prevent hearing loss.
Something we can slow down if we take care of stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
Very.
I always felt like hearing loss must just be a normal part of aging, but you're saying there's a way to prevent it. Can you talk more about that?
Well, I don't know if preventing, like, there's no way to prevent a natural deterioration of our bodies, right? That is part of natural aging.
Right.
But there are things you can do to help mitigate the impact.
Okay.
So making sure you're using hearing protection, when you're going to concerts, when you're working with power tools, doing lawn work, things that you can do to just reduce the risk factors. And that's all about that education component.
Yeah. I know my boyfriend was at one of the recent IndyCar races that was here in St. Louis, and he works in a factory. So he's like big on the hearing protection sort of things. Actually, after 30 years of working in a factory, he still has pretty good hearing, but he always brings extras to those things. And he had a couple next to him, and the woman just kept doing this for those of you who can't see me, covering her ears every time the cars rolled by. And he kept offering her, are you sure you don't want these?
She should have taken him up on that.
She really should have. I've gone to one of those with him, and I cannot imagine going without
loud.
hearing protection.
They are extremely, extremely loud. Yeah.
So are there specific safety concerns that caregivers should be aware of when they're thinking about hearing loss in their loved one? I know we talked a little bit about falls. We've talked a little bit about cognitive decline. Are there other things that we should be kind of worrying about to make sure that our loved ones are safer when it comes to hearing loss?
So I would say one of the things you can do is if a hearing loss has been diagnosed, and it kind of depends on the severity of that, there's all kinds of assistive devices for our homes that help with alerting.
Oh.
So you can get systems that are special doorbells that have flashing lights or an amplified tone. You can have weather alerts because maybe they have low vision and they can't look out a window and see, hey, there's green sky out there and maybe we need to get to safety, or maybe they don't have the television on to get an alert, but they have special alerting devices for people who are hard of hearing to be aware of those things. There are amplified phones, caption phones these days. So I think anytime you can create a better connection with that person and the outside world is going to improve safety.
Okay. So let's say we've got our loved one in your chair. You've said, okay, you have some hearing loss, recommending hearing aids. I know that they've come a long way. I see our volunteers with all different kinds of hearing aids these days, the ones that go over the ear, the ones that fit in, all kinds of different things. Tell us a little bit about the technologies that people might not be aware of.
Yeah. I always tell people, these are not your great-grandma's hearing aids, right? People often associate hearing aids with age, like with just, I'm getting old, and there's kind of that social stigma, and it's just not like that anymore. Nice. I fit people in their 30s and 40s all the time.
Oh, wow.
Right? So in terms of the technology, like hearing aids can do some really cool stuff these days. We have AI in hearing aids, where it's analyzing the environment. They have these, the technological term that the manufacturers use is they're using these deep neural networks to actually, they can train the devices on how to respond to what's happening around them. These are not just amplifiers anymore. Wow. Some of these devices out there are capable of making, a couple million decisions per second. Almost.
Oh my goodness.
And then you've got like fun things like Bluetooth streaming and stuff like that. So you can connect them to your phones, your iPads, your TVs, your...
Oh, wow. So you can play the sound right into your ear?
Right into your ears.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, wow.
That is really
That's
cool.
so nice for the rest of the house.
Yeah.
Wow. I know a couple people who need those. Now, can you stream it to your ear, but also have the sound on for the rest of the room?
You can.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Yes.
super nice.
Yeah. So you can have like your own custom little listening profile for your favorite show.
Oh, I love that.
Or maybe if you're watching a show that somebody else in the house has no interest on, you can listen to it all you want and maybe just shut off the volume for them. Wow. So they can read their book.
Does Medicare tend to cover hearing aids?
Traditional Medicare does not yet. There has been talk at a federal level for many, many years about changing that. It hasn't gone in. Nothing has passed at this point. There are some managed Medicare programs that have benefits. I always tell my patients, make sure you read the fine print, because sometimes it is a benefit where the managed care program will actually pay something towards the device, and other times they're saying you're eligible for a discount program. So really really look at your benefit policy and see what it is that you have available to you.
Are there other ways out there that can make hearing aids more affordable? Because that's the one thing I always hear from people is they're so expensive. But what can people do, maybe proactively or when they're in your office to get something that is, maybe more within their budget?
Well, I would say that is why we exist at the Center for Hearing and Speech, right? We are a nonprofit organization, and so we have multiple financial assistance programs, and this is not like financing per se, like they are scholarships, and we are paying the cost of their devices. For some people, it's a portion. For some people, it's 100%. Part of the reason why we are here, and that's why we are unique.
Awesome. Yeah, I was telling Melody before this, my family and my extended world has had so many great experiences with your organization in particular. I had a staff member, actually. I was working at an organization that served people with vision loss, and I had a staff member who was legally blind. And we started noticing, when we come into the station after his shifts, the monitors would be up really, really loud, and he was losing his hearing. He ended up going to you guys. This was probably 10 years ago. You guys must have taken him for 5 or 6 different fittings because he was one of the most persnickety people that you ever met. But I swear to God, you saved his job. And so I'll forever be grateful for that because he was one of my more favorite people in the world. But so you really helped Jim there.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, one of the things that we pride ourselves on at the center is going the extra mile, reaching beyond our services, and really providing that personalized care. We tell people that we transform their lives by empowering their communication, and that's our role. It's not to sell you a device. It is to improve your quality of life by breaching this connection.
Yeah, because living in a world where you're unable to hear what's going on is a real challenge. And people who are hard of hearing from birth or deaf from birth, they often have a lot of tools that you can use, sign language and cochlear implants, things like that. But for an aging population, that can be a real challenge because learning things like sign language, adapting to a cochlear implant at that age is really challenging. So it's good to have some of these other options out there.
Yeah, and that's part of the journey, right? Because your hearing on maybe the day we meet you may not be your hearing 10 years from then. And so, being able to work with our patients long term so that we can guide them through that process. And maybe we start with the hearing aid and we end up with a cochlear implant. I do cochlear implant patients all the time, and we've worked through that whole process.
Wow.
One of my most favorite patients out there is I've known her for over 20 years now. And, when I first started seeing her, she had a fairly significant hearing loss, but was doing well with her hearing aids, and it progressively just got worse and worse and worse. She was resistant to getting a cochlear implant, and then for very personal reasons decided to take that leap. She now has 2, and she says it's the very best thing she ever did.
Yeah.
But we had to work through that process.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's a big step. It's a
big step.
surgery. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So, and I understand the training is quite a bit as well to kind of get used to them. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's tools out there, and we provide the tools and we provide the therapy to do that. But it is not a quick solution. It is a commitment on our patient's end.
Now, I know that the Center for Hearing and Speech has been doing quite a bit of advocacy in Missouri around hearing aids. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'd love to.
Because we'll be going into legislative session by the time this airs. So,
we have been working very, very hard for the last 2 years to get Medicaid coverage for all adults reinstated in Missouri. Back in 2005, the benefits were cut for any adult unless you were blind, you were pregnant, or you lived in a nursing home. Under 21 was still covered. So we have been working to get those benefits reinstated at a statutory level. And that way, when Medicaid is looking at things, it's kind of like a security net, right?
Yeah.
And I am absolutely thrilled to announce that Governor Kehoe signed the bill. It is done. Starting next year, these benefits are reinstated for all adults under Medicaid in Missouri.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow.
So, and that's going to help so many
people across the state.
Yeah, because we have a lot of older adults that are on Medicaid. We have a lot of younger adults too. I mean, the caregivers are often working with loved ones who are on Medicaid, so this will be able to help a lot of folks. So, gosh, that's huge. Congratulations! 'Cause
Thank you.
I know it was a lot of effort. I remember watching one year and it just eked past, and just the timeline just didn't work out. And I was so devastated for you guys.
We came very, very close last year, like just days into the end of the session. And this year, the bill was voted truly passed the last day of session.
Awesome.
And so, yes, we are thrilled and grateful and acknowledge the hard work of the General Assembly that helped us do this.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So the benefits will start for people on January 1st, 2026?
It's not January, so it's the fiscal year of 27,
Okay.
which on the state fiscal year is July of 26.
Okay. Great. So about a year from now, guys.
About a year.
Go, and if you really need support, go, well, and actually, you guys are here to support people in that meantime.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah, one of the programs we have right now is strictly dedicated to adult Medicaid recipients. So
That's awesome. Very awesome. Tell us, we, of course, here at Voice, we work with a lot of people who live in nursing homes. And you mentioned people who are on Medicaid living in a nursing home are already covered. How would somebody who lives in a nursing home maybe is not able to reliably get out of the facility, how would somebody go about hooking up with somebody who can help provide them with a hearing aid?
So I know that there are some providers that do go to the nursing homes to provide care. They are out there. For our clinic, oftentimes that nursing home will have transportation services and they bring them to us. So that person isn't necessarily responsible, but they can do it like through their caseworker or social worker, whoever kind of manages that part of their living facility. So they come to us on vans a lot of times.
One more question, and I've gone completely off script, and I'm sorry, Melody. This is just one of those topics. I have so much to learn. I've heard a lot about over-the-counter hearing aids, and they're cheaper than the. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that is? If we were going to go with them, where we would, what the difference is, what the benefits.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It is, yeah. So the whole over-the-counter hearing aid thing started back in 2016. That's when the first Trump administration signed the order that the FDA has to come up with this definition and category of over-the-counter products. Now, we all know what happened in 2020. COVID kind of really put a whole spin on this and delayed the whole process. So the FDA had so much time before they had to come up with this definition and this category of devices type of thing. It's out there, it's done, it's active. What I always counsel people on is keep in mind that over-the-counter hearing aids are truly only FDA approved for a perceived mild hearing loss, right? You don't have to get a hearing test to go out and buy these over-the-counter products. But you have to, if you take that choice onto yourself, you have to understand that you're making a medical decision without professional care. And so you're going to work one-on-one with whoever you buy that from, right? You're not going to have any professional support for the device because they are often not devices we can even work with. We can't program them. We can maybe do a basic cleaning, but I can't do anything with how they sound, how they fit. You have to work that out with the retailer. It's not a great analogy, but it's kind of like I'm having trouble seeing, and I'm just going to go buy some cheaters.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought.
Yeah, that's
it might
what
be like.
it made me think of too.
Yeah, but you're trying to treat something without a diagnosis.
Yeah.
The devices themselves, there are some of them that have not gone through like a vetting process in terms of research and development, in terms of the sound quality and things like that. Just like anything else out there, there's good ones and there's really, really bad ones.
Yeah.
And so it's about educating. If you're going to be a consumer of these products, you have to educate yourself on what you're getting.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Well, what is one thing that you wish every caregiver knew about hearing loss and how to approach it with their loved one?
I think the best piece of advice I can say is just have a lot of patience, have a lot of empathy. It's a difficult conversation to often have. And I think one of the most important things is to also just validate the concerns that or maybe even the denial. Validate the denial. Like, I understand you don't think this is a problem, but here's how it's impacting everybody else around you. And can we maybe just take one step to get information about what's happening with your health? So sometimes that can open the door to next step forward.
Yeah. Well, and we certainly see a lot of dangerous situations where somebody has some hearing loss, they're at the doctor, they're just nodding away. And, not understanding what's
The
going
smile
on.
and nod technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful what you're nodding to.
Yeah. So then if somebody suspects their family is having some hearing loss, right now, what's the first thing they should do?
I always say, first thing to do is maybe just start with educating yourself on what is hearing loss and how it can impact, because then you can go into those discussions with more information. I think more information is always better than no information. And then, just having that open dialogue and saying, let's do this together. I'm not here to tell you this is a problem, but let's do this together as a team, as a family. I love it when my patients bring other people in with them. I always say 4 years are better than 2.
Yep.
Because the reality is, clinically, when I'm trying to, do a test and give a patient information and give them my professional recommendations, they really only remember about 15% of what I say. And so if they're coming to appointments just by themselves, obviously everybody is different, but there's a good chance that they're not going to remember most of what's said.
Yeah.
So I think anytime you can have a team approach, then you have better results.
Awesome. That's some really good advice for so many parts of caregiving. That team approach and not just not turning into the parent. Things like that it's hard.
It
It's
is hard
the hardest
because,
caregiver.
as our parents age, you do have that kind of natural transition from being the child to being that caregiver. You are parenting your parent in a way for some people, and especially if you do have somebody with greater cognitive issues, that maybe cannot make medical decisions.
Dr. Sinks, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that I learned a lot. Hearing loss is one of those things that's so fascinating to me. It's hit so many different people in my family that, I've certainly seen people have some really great experiences with audiology and hearing aids, and I've seen some people have some really bad experiences. So I'm really glad that you're here to kind of help guide people through this maze.
Yeah, absolutely. I one of my favorite things about what I do is just educating people.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have my parents get their hearing checked. It's next on the list.
Well, you know where to find us.
All right. We'll see you next time.